How has your experience been since the October 7th? How has the events touched you personally?
Well, since October 7th, I believe that we've undergone, all of Israel and all of the Jewish community in the world has undergone a massive trauma. I believe that the events of October 7th affected every single man, woman, and child on a personal level in this country. It's a very small country, but 1,400 murdered is equivalent to 30,000 in America, let's say. And everybody either knows somebody or knows somebody that knows somebody. It's a very small community here. So we all feel that pain collectively. And there's a sense of dread because there's an overall sadness in there, and it's something that will take a long time to finish.
Recently, we witnessed the release of some hostages. How do you think their lives would be impacted, especially for those very young children who have spent more than 50 days in captivity?
I cannot imagine or begin to imagine the trauma that the hostages went through. Some of them being very, very young children. To be in captivity for over 50 days is something that it's incredible trauma. I don't know if they'll ever be able to get past this trauma. I would not want to switch places with them. There's nobody that I would wish that on, not my worst enemy. There were reports that some of the children were branded from a motorcycle exhaust that was hot in order to
organize them.
Yeah, so that if they ran away, they would know how to find them. There were reports that they were malnourished and fed very, very little food and kept in very horrible conditions throughout the whole period, not being allowed to shower maybe once. I don't know what I could say to try to understand what they went through, because I hope that I never have to understand that, because I don't think it's something that you can understand.
And you don't have to. Throughout the hostages exchange, we saw many videos of hostages saying thank you to the terrorists of Hamas and like smiling to them and waving to them. Do you think this kind of propaganda works on people for real? Do you think that the media who used those videos thinks it will legitimate taking someone in hostage?
I want to ask you a question. How, and pardon me if this comes across as rude, but how stupid do you have to be to believe that somebody who keeps children captive after murdering their family members and friends, holding them in horrendous conditions, how completely blind and idiotic do you have to be in order to believe that they have some positive relationship with them? First of all, they're extremely scared for their lives. And we've seen video footage that directly shows the terrorists telling them what to say and do. Because their friends and family members, some of them are still held captive by Hamas. So under such circumstances, tell me, how could somebody legitimately believe that there was any kind of a good relationship there?
I don't know. But in Europe, it's a current subject that thinking Hamas is a good guy in this war and Israel bad guys. It's a lot of anti-Semitism in Europe now. Opinion of the public is very important in this war.
Absolutely. But tell me something, what was the opinion of the public in the 1940s, in World War II, when they were rounding up the Jews and sending them on trains? Now that we say never again, this phrase is very important for Jewish people. Never again means we will never go through the Holocaust. But people have very short memories. So how can we be expected as Jews to forget such things? And when we see them happening in front of our eyes, especially in Europe, which is extremely ironic in a not funny way, we see people preaching gas the Jews, we see people preaching from the river to the sea, which is a legitimate call for genocide, actual genocide. And then we say that Europe is a free and liberal society where people can practice their religion freely, live freely. But how? When we see these things, it gives me chills, it gives me flashbacks. I, as a Jewish person, with friends and family in Europe, am terrified. I'm terrified for their lives. I'm terrified that somebody walks out on the street with a kippah or with a Star of David and gets attacked for being Jewish in 2023. Is this the world we want to raise our children in?
People are saying Israel are committing a genocide in Gaza. Can you explain what is genocide for real?
Yeah, so genocide is the killing and murdering of mass members of a population because of their faith and because of who they are. It's a form of ethnic cleansing. It's killing people for what they believe in mass numbers, just for being who they are and being different than you. The population in Gaza, when we pulled out in 2005, has more than doubled till 2023. Is that the worst genociders ever, Israel? If we're able to double the population of a place that we're committing genocide against? Genocide is calling for the elimination of a whole people and saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, meaning the complete wiping out and genocide of the entire region between most people that they say from the river to the sea, they don't know what it means. It's from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. All the area in between, aka the State of Israel, the only liberal democracy in the Middle East, aka the Jewish homeland, one of all of these 22 Arab neighboring nations, okay, one sliver of land needs to be wiped out. That's what they're calling for. That's what these people in America, in Western Europe, that chant these things, it's pure ignorance. It's like trendy. It's a fashionable thing to say. Most of them, you ask them, let's say 95%, and I'm being generous, don't know which river and which sea they're even talking about. They're just chanting it to be trendy. So that's what I call actual genocide. Murdering civilians just to kill civilians is genocide. Trying to root out an actual terrorist organization that has many, many times claimed, and in their charter, that Israel needs to be wiped off the face of the earth and every single Jewish person needs to be killed, exterminated, that's genocide. So all of these, woke college students that are saying, oh, Israel's committing genocide without knowing what genocide really means, need to take a very long look in the mirror and find out, what's kind of going on with them.
What do you think? What is the real purpose of erase Israel in the world map?
Let's start with the people that say, okay, free Palestine, right? Protect the Palestinian civilians. Protect civilians, right? They care about human life.
Yes.
Who doesn't care about human life? We all do. We all have hearts. We all care for
Hamas.
children. What about the Syrian civil war, where they use chemical weapons against their own people, Bashar al-Assad? What about in Yemen? All of the people killed with that civil war. Was there protests? Was there violence in the streets? Was there calls to action? Silence. Nothing. What about Libya? What about all over the Arab world? You see Arab on Arab violence. It's not sexy. Nobody cares. When do people start caring? When there's somebody else to blame. And who's the most famous person to blame in all of history? All of recorded history? The Jews, of course, were the scapegoat, right? It's the easiest one to blame. And when you give people a chance to blame other people for their own problems, they'll jump on that chance and jump on the victim train and try and point fingers. Because it's easy. You don't have to use too much brain power to come to that kind of conclusion. It's a very dangerous one because anti-Semitism has been around forever. Many, many, many nations have tried to wipe us off the face of the earth. All of them are gone now, right? All of those, we can go into antiquity, we can go into history, and we can see time after time after time. A nation vows to destroy Israel, Israel survives. Another nation comes, tries to destroy, Israel survives. Everybody's been trying to do it. It's been very trendy. It's something that many nations want. And now the new flavor of the month is Hamas. They've vowed to destroy Israel and wipe us off the face of the earth in their charter officially. So what do we do with such a thing? Anti-Semitism is something that needs to change and needs to go away. I wish I could say that I'm hopeful that it will go away, but history has shown us that it's something that's very, very ingrained in people's minds. The only way we can combat that is by, number one, being brave and not standing up to any type of anti-Semitism, standing up to any type of Jew hatred. We need to support ourselves. And what we saw with all of this civil unrest that's been going on in Israel lately is that we were vulnerable. And that vulnerability made our enemies very excited to attack us.
Do you think we can fight anti-Semitism also in college, not only in our Arab nations? I mean, in United States, in Europe, all over the world.
First of all, many American colleges are very much funded billions of dollars by Qatar. The clear agenda of anti-Israel bias. Beyond that, we have a systemic situation with postmodern colonialism where colonialist is bad and anything that resembles colonialist is bad. And we have Israel colonizers. They completely ignore and reject the fact that this is our homeland and we're indigenous to this land. Unlike America, where they live and enjoy civil liberties, which is actually occupied by them and actually was originally Native American land. Unlike different places, in Europe, where they're able to enjoy freedom of Western democracy enough to be able to express themselves openly and freely. That's something that they forget. When you see college campuses supporting people, like recently the trend with the letter to America, Osama bin Laden, is there more of a ridiculous thing that you can think of than a 21-year-old person in a college campus that might be LGBTQ praising actual mass killer that conducted one of the worst terror attacks in history? It's ludicrous. It's insane. So the way to combat that is education. Will it take a day? Will it take 2 days? Will it take a month? No, it will take a long time, but it needs to be handled and it needs to be very, very looked at. The way that the younger generation is going is very dangerous.
Education is not enough because in all the schools, at least in Europe and also in United States, we learn in school anti-Semitism and Shoah and everything about the World War II.
A lot of people forget history very quickly, and history has a tendency to repeat itself. The only thing we can do at this point is keep fighting for the truth and keep showing people that hatred is not the way. Keep showing people that the right for us to live and defend ourselves is Israel, in Israel, is our right. And that's something that's never going to change.
With the recent events, with a lot of anti-Semitism, with terrorist attacks in many countries since October 7th, should you to be scared?
Jewish people should not be scared. The whole point of what Hamas is doing, all the terrorist organizations, all the pro-Hamas people around the world, is to scare us, is to make us, in their own words, shake and fear. We will not back down. We will not shake, and we're very strong. And no matter how bad it looks or how dark it looks, the light prevails. We will continue to thrive. We will continue to live. And we'll continue to be Jewish and be who we are in our nation and in other nations around the world. We can never, ever, ever let the evil win.
What do you think about the effects of this conflict, especially in Europe?
Europe is terrifying right now for Jewish people. The amount of hatred and the amount of anti-Semitism that I've seen in capitals like London, Paris, places in Germany, all over Europe is very disheartening. I have many friends in Europe that have taken down the mezuzot from their doors. They don't go with kippot anymore in the streets. What I'd like to know is why they see history so short. The events of World War II didn't happen such a long time ago.
For the people who protest in Europe, especially in Paris, in Germany, as you said, there is not all the population who protest against Jew, but they are not only against Jew, they are also for Hamas terrorists.
What I've seen is a lot of the people protesting are coming in the form of immigrants from majority Muslim countries. These people, a lot of the times, are not really helping the economy. They're feeding off of the welfare, and they're coming to not assimilate, but to kind of make their own Sharia state within those European countries. The policies of Europe, especially after World War II, allowed mass immigration from Eastern European, but most recently Arabic countries and North African to immigrate into Europe. However, the problem with this is that you have a massive percentage of the people absolutely refusing to assimilate in any way into the culture of these states, and many times creating mass crime, rioting, violence, and altogether problems for the state itself. In the UK, you had about 300,000 pro-Palestinian protesters, but within them you had also very radical Hamas supporters. The UK also designates Hamas as a terror group. This means that they're actively havening and protecting terrorists. And some of the Hamas leadership also live in the UK specifically. Same thing with the rise in France of anti-Semitism. You had many terror attacks against Jewish people in the last decade, even further than the last decade. But especially now, you see this massive group that excuses all the actions of Hamas for what they consider freedom fighters and resistance. Let me ask you something. Is rape resistance? Is beheading babies resistance? Is putting them in ovens resistance? Is kidnapping babies and Holocaust survivor grandmothers resistance? There have been reports of things that are unthinkably evil. How can you justify any of that in the name of resistance? They say that it's an apartheid. You can't have people that they are claimed apartheid enjoying the same democratic rights as the quote-unquote oppressor. So within the Israeli government, we have many Arab Knesset members. We have Supreme Court judges that are Arabic and Muslim. We have equal rights for all of the citizens, one person, one vote system, democracy, to vote who they feel should be in power. And there's no different lines to use the bus, or there's no separation officially. There is no apartheid in Israel. It's not an apartheid state. Even South African leadership has come and acknowledged that it is not an apartheid state.
And what about West Bank?
Many people believe that the West Bank has no connection with Hamas. They have Hamas members and they have many other terrorist organization members within the West Bank. Very recently, they hung 2 Palestinians that they claimed were traitors in the attempt to radicalize and show that in the West Bank they also kind of stand with Hamas. It's not so cut and dry. There's a lot of nuance to what's happening there, but at the same time it's a legitimate threat.
We hear a lot of protests about women in Gaza, women all over the world except Israel. Where are they when Israeli women are raped, are abused, and are murdered violently?
I think it's an incredible shame what their stance has been regarding just the sheer hypocrisy of how much they've ignored Israeli Jewish women and their real trauma and real horror that happened to them. So I remember a few years ago, there was the Me Too movement. I remember there was also the Bring Our Girls Back movement. There was so much emphasis and pressure, especially by the media and by Hollywood, about believing women. When a woman claims that she was raped, that she was sexually assaulted, believe her. The hypocrisy that has been shown by all of these international organizations is sickening. They should all be completely ashamed of themselves. Disregarding women's rights and disregarding actual victims of rape and sexual assault is disgusting on every level. I think that these organizations are completely biased, hypocritical, horrible, monstrous organizations if they cannot acknowledge Israeli women that were in these horrible situations. And I know that the trauma that these women faced was magnified so much more because so many people denied that they even went through it and denied that it even happened. I want those people to look themselves in the mirror and think what they should do if it was their daughter, their mother, their wife, their girlfriend that experienced such a horror, and to really look at themselves and say, this is what I believe in. All women have rights. All women should be believed, except if they're Jewish, except if they're Israeli. Those women don't have rights, and those women's claims of rape and trauma and sexual assault are illegitimate. That's what they should say, and they should say it openly and stand behind their words.
What about the UN women who pretend to stand with all the women, all the human rights, but they didn't say nothing? They stay silent for 57 days. And they post something today on Instagram about Israeli woman who was raped. And they erased it after.
I shame them. The UN Women's Rights Council is a joke. They should be embarrassed. 50-something days into the thing, they decide maybe to write something about it, maybe not, to please their fake, completely hypocritical constituents and the people that support them and fund them. Shame on them. Shame, 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 shame. Disgusting.
You think UN is biased?
UN is exactly what it is, but you need to put the word fit after it. It's UN, unfit. Unfit to do the job that it's supposed to do. Every single chance that they have to condemn Israel in the face of actual terror and actual people that are claiming and begging to commit genocide against the Jewish people, they take advantage and they support it fully. The UN is a joke of an organization. Its bias is so obvious that it's a joke. Anybody who really listens to them at this point is oblivious.
They also stay silent when it's time to speak about LGBTQ community in Gaza and in West Bank and in all Arab nations. What about that?
The whole idea of LGBTQ for Hamas or gays for Palestine is, there's the joke of chickens for KFC or cows for McDonald's. It's literally setting yourself up to be killed, because if you want to live a gay lifestyle in Gaza or in the Islamic community in general,
you just can't.
You just can't. They're going to kill you. They're going to burn you alive, throw you off a building, stone you to death. It's not a very pleasant existence. So to see the amount of ignorance that goes into that is ridiculous. And I've spoken to members of the LGBTQ community that find it ridiculous and are not able to even comprehend how somebody can be so ignorant. You want to support the underdog. You want the victim to be protected, right? Mm-hmm. The victims were the babies that were killed and had their heads cut off the day of October 7th. And the people in the Nova rave party that were trying to have a good time on a lovely Saturday afternoon for peace. That's a victim. That's an innocent civilian. Groups like Black Lives Matter Chicago posting a picture of a parachute terrorist that literally came down and indiscriminately shot kids and partygoers is not a David story. That's a story of murderers and terrorists. And if you stand with that, you stand with evil. There's no gray zone about this. If you stand with terror, you stand with evil. Black Lives Matter, Chicago, all these groups, and all these celebrities also that have caused for ceasefire so that Hamas can regroup and continue sending missiles indiscriminately at civilians. That's a very, very important point. Many, many people have accused Israel of indiscriminate bombings. We are not interested in killing civilians. We're not interested in killing Muslims. We're not interested in killing Arabs. We're interested in killing and destroying a terrorist group that has vowed and promised to wipe off every Jew off the face of the earth and destroy us and ethnic cleanse Israel. That's not something that we can live with. We are entitled absolutely to protect ourselves, absolutely, without any reservations. And in order to do that and eliminate such a horrible organization that embeds themselves within civilian infrastructure, like schools, like hospitals, like places that, like mosques, places that you would never expect somebody to be so cowardly and so sneaky to go underneath and try to create some kind of a friction. And the international community, because they're not stupid, they know very, very well what they're doing. And then when we go in, we have to eliminate them. I am extremely heartbroken for any innocent civilian life lost on any side, in Gaza, in Israel. Children being killed as a result of war is a tragedy. Nobody ever should have to go through that. But we cannot allow Hamas to continue their operations, and we must eliminate them.
Can you speak about the role of the media in this war?
The media, as always, doesn't surprise. I feel there's an anti-Israel bias from media sources like MSNBC specifically, of course BBC, CNN, and others. There's a very, very clear connection between, obviously, media sources like Al Jazeera, but also BBC is very much involved with Hamas. And the way they word certain articles, they very clearly don't use the word terrorist to describe Hamas when it absolutely should and is. The UK government, which they operate under, clearly identifies Hamas as a terrorist organization. However, they decline to do so for their own biased reasons. And I think it's very shameful. I would very much like to see unbiased media coverage of this, and that's why I think it's so important to have these kind of discussions and speak really from the ground. And knowing specific people, individuals that are there on both sides. I have friends that are Palestinians, I have friends that are Jewish, I have friends that are all over the map. And we all see a very, very clear picture, but the warped picture that the media depicts is nothing new. And if you, at this point in 2023, can watch the news and believe word for word everything that they're telling you, what can I say? You're a sheep.
Do you have a last word for the people who still think Israel is settlers?
Yes, I do. My last 2 words. It's called Merry Christmas. Billions of people all over the world are going to celebrate soon the birth of a Jewish man that lived here about 2,000 years ago. And they're still trying to tell us that Jews did not live here before 1948. A little bit ironic, right?
Yes.
Especially with all the archaeological evidence, with the Temple of Jerusalem was the place for Jewish worship. Still saying that Jews are just colonialists, and they're white, and they just want to come and be European settlers in a land that has completely no connection to them, and it's all a fabrication. Read a book. Wake up. Read a book once in your life. Look through the pages. Bias. And read some history. Learn some history. Really, if you want to become, a Wikipedia philosopher, you might as well read some actual books and back up your claims and know that Israel is an indigenous people in this land. We have a very, very close and tight connection to all the parts of this land, and we are the indigenous people. It's pretty obvious. I don't understand what's the big confusion about it.